All right, welcome back to another edition of Sunday Tai Chi, or whenever you choose to do it. I'm Carlos. If you're new, if you're a regular, great to see you back again. And start out with our warm-ups. Guys, you have to do your warm-ups. And you can't, so a lot of what we're doing in Tai Chi is for relaxation, or learning to relax, or trying to figure out the opposite of tension. Whatever the opposite of tension is for you, we're calling that relaxation. And you don't want to confuse that with what we're doing a lot of lately, which is just sitting around doing nothing. That's not necessarily relaxing. It's not necessarily meditating. In fact, it can be very not relaxing, sitting around, not by choice. So I think our Tai Chi is more important now than ever. And if your arms are not swinging totally freely, then you know what I'm talking about. You've got tension. So let's do some shoulder rolls. And remember, don't wait till Sunday to do your shoulder rolls. Do a bunch of these throughout the day. Remember, the shoulders are our storehouse of tension. Let's go around the other way. And so also I've mentioned we're kind of moving quickly through some things that we would have taken longer to do in a normal class, but I'm trusting you to hit the pause button. If this feels good, you want to do this for a long time, just hit pause on whatever device you're using. This is one of the only advantages of video, being able to pause it, being able to rewind it if you can't see it properly. And speaking of seeing things properly, I'm going to put on my gloves momentarily. Let's make this more interesting. Let's get one shoulder, each one going independently of the other. This is still a symmetrical movement. They're just slightly out of sync, or perfectly out of sync. And reverse that. Okay, and then do one shoulder forward, one shoulder backwards. Again, this is still symmetrical, even though these are opposites. And it's actually not, well, let's see. It's not a perfect opposite, because both shoulders, even though they're counter-rotating, they are still rising and falling at the same time. So let's reverse that. I'll think of if there's another way I can make it even more difficult. I think in our last session, what we did was, let's come to a stop. We got one shoulder rotating at one speed, and then the other shoulder rotating at a completely different speed. Now that's should be the hardest thing for your brain to understand. And then let's do the other one faster and the other one slower. And this stuff just keeps it interesting, right? I can't let this stuff get too easy for you, or you'll play Sudoku puzzles or something like that, or you'll pick up an instrument, something that's really hard. If you think our level of memorization in this class is difficult, just remember how hard it is to learn an instrument or a new language. Okay, so let us do, everything we're doing is, let's do our neck. Look up and down. Not too much of this. Okay, let's look side to side. and then look straight ahead, tip the head a little bit. See, I'm barely doing this, but I can already feel it. Some people can touch their ear to their shoulder practically. Some people can hold a cell phone here. I have no idea how they can do it. I used to be able to hold a handset, an old-fashioned handset phone there, but the idea of holding a thin cell phone, I could never do it. Even if you hunch this up, I just don't see how you can do it. It can't be good for your neck. So let's see. And then we've discovered that just these movements are not good enough, so we got to do some of this. You guys keep doing this. I'll be right back. All right. So for our Qigong today, we'll do scoop the ocean and gaze at the horizon. I really don't need the gloves for this because the left hand and the right hand are exactly the same. So for scoop the ocean and gaze at the horizon, again, you guys, you can be mirroring me, so the left and the right are irrelevant, but I'm going to step out obliquely to the corner, and there's going to be some shifting forward and shifting back, but not a whole lot. So let's say we start back, and I will scoop the ocean, and then shift forward and gaze at the horizon. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of a longer stance. Okay, so exhale back, scoop the ocean, inhale forward, and gaze at the horizon. I love how understated this is compared, for instance, to yoga. If this was yoga, it'd be something like that, and then, something like this. But no, this is very understated, and you could argue that this is all you need. And that also the fact that we're doing so many means that you don't have to exaggerate the movement so much. Okay? So I'm vertical, not leaning back, and I'm not extending over my knee over my toes from my line of sight. At first I was coming a little too, so here's what you can do. If you feel like you want to come like this, don't do that, just widen your stance out. And this goes for Tai Chi or yoga. If you want to go deeper into your stances, you may, but you have to adjust everything. You can't just do one aspect. So you may have noticed in the past that Tai Chi is really good for your leg strength, and it's just because of things like this, right? So let's step back in, step out to the other side, and start on the other side, okay? So again, you don't have to have this long stance, but if you want to develop more leg strength in a different way, this develops leg strength in a different way than walking your dog or climbing stairs. Everything's different. I'm not saying this is better or worse than anything else, it's just different. The Tai Chi leg strength is, there's a lot of stability in it. What we don't have is the explosive short twitch muscles. For that, you need to run up and down stairs 2 at a time, or jump rope. That's a little bit more realistic. And as usual on this, remember, I don't have to tell you how to breathe. The basic rule is inhale, open, and exhale, close. And you should be able to find the open and close in anything we do. And then the only other rule is exhale on exertion and inhale whenever you're not exerting, or before you exert yourself, right? And that works in Tai Chi and around the house, in the garden, whatever you're doing. Okay. All right, so that's our Qigong for the day. How about, let's go back to basics and do our side-to-side teacups. Again, the left and the right are irrelevant here. And this is super back to basics, so if you're brand new, you'll like this. And I'll review again how we pivot, okay? So first of all, we're always shifting our weight in Tai Chi, even when it's not obvious. Just turning my body shifted my weight. It happened to shift a little weight into this foot, so we're never what they call double weighted. It's just not a goal to be 50-50. Don't confuse 50-50 weighting with stability. We're super stable on one foot, right? So, and that's 100-0, you know, or 90-10, right? So, and it's a constant process, right? And then we're always happen to be pivoting, and whenever we pivot, for our purposes, we're always going to pivot on our heels. Later on in our form, we'll pivot on the ball of the foot, but not yet. So so rule number 1, take your weight off that foot. Rule number 2, pick up your toes and pivot on the heel. So off I go. And then to come back, take the weight off the foot, pivot around. Hope you can see my feet. Okay. I'm going to take a little wider stance here. And then we'll add our teacups. This is Jibin Gong from Bagua. So as I go from side to side, I'm going to offer a cup of tea behind me. And just to remind you, since this is from Bagua, everything in Bagua is spiraling. So don't try to think of this in terms of straight lines, and just look at what my hands are doing. They're totally spinning around. Once you've got that pivoting down, feel for all the different coiling and uncoiling going on. And remember, I never mention extending the front hand forward anymore, because that's happening automatically. Unfortunately, the other automatic thing is people are leaning, and try not to lean, okay? So let me tell you a theory of what's going on here. When people are unconsciously extending their hand forward, this is again this concept of lié or splitting. This backward force is translating. You can just see it happening. I didn't do that. My hand did that all by itself. And when we suppress that, and I don't allow myself to lean over, and I stay vertical, and I suppress this forward motion, I'm packing more power into this movement. So I'm compressing, in other words. So the chi wants to, or the yi wants to extend forward and I'm not allowing it, and that compresses it and makes even more energy. If we could do a two-person technique right now, I could demonstrate it. I could show you the power that we're developing. But for right now, all I want you to feel is that when you extend that left hand back, that front hand is just dying to move forward, right? And it's a very odd force, right? And this is just such a simple exercise. And remember, we used to just do it just to loosen up our arms, right? But there's so much in this, right? You can feel it coming from your waist too, and you can feel driving up, spiraling. Your legs are spiraling up from the ground out through your hips, and then all this force wants to shoot that hand forward, and the more you restrain it, the more it wants to go forward. So this is just wonderful. So whenever we go back to basics, this is a good thing. Don't yawn when we do something that we've done a million times. In fact, it's your job to find something new and feel it in a different way than you felt it the last 100 times, right? I mean, the masters do the same form every day that they've been doing for 50, 70 years, and that's plenty for them. I mean, there's more to Tai Chi than just the form, but the form is the basis, and it never gets boring. Okay, so now we come back and we'll just meditate in our resting posture. Now you can feel a lot of chi built up in your hands. Okay, great. Meditate longer if you like. In fact, I'm going to have a sip of water and then we'll do our form. Speaking of our form. So I take a sip of water to make sure that you take one too. So we're just going to do the first 8 movements. I hope you were pivoting your feet properly because I feel a little twist in my knees. And I don't know what surface you're on, but we know here at the dojo the mats do tend to kind of grab onto your feet, unless you're wearing socks, and then they slip around. So we'll do the A side of the form, and we're doing it, I'm facing you here, and we do a little turn, and then there's only one spot. Well, let's see. No, we'll be okay. You can see me for the whole form, and it should be just fine. So remember, relax completely in our resting posture. Remember, if you're brand new, the feet are parallel, directly under the hips, shoulders relaxed, sort of rounded forward. So this is normally bad posture in yoga or in the army or whatever. But so just for our Tai Chi form, we take this very rounded shoulders, sunken chest. But we don't want to have, this posture is full of energy, right? It's not just, bleh. Okay, so to energize this, pull up through the crown point of the head as you sink the tailbone down simultaneously. So now the spine lengthens. You feel the dantian move back slightly. The Mingmen moves back, that's in your back. And then of course the spine is elongating wonderfully, and that adds like a really alive feeling to your resting posture. It's the difference, like I said, between sitting around on the couch and meditating. One has not very much life in it, and the other is just full of vitality and awareness. So here we go. So we'll begin. So sink into your right leg. This is my left hand, this is my right hand. Orange is right, yellow is left. Sink into your right leg. Slide the left foot up. As soon as it plants itself, the left hand can come up. And and then slide the right foot through and punch right on your center. The left hand comes around. It never really should stop the way mine did. Mine did just for a moment. The hands cross. This is reach up to touch the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. As the arms come up, use that little upward movement to slide the left foot up next to the right. Drop the right hand back down to your waist. Slide the right foot up. Punch again to your center. This is carry hammer. Shift back. Hold a ball. This is our white crane. The right hand replaces the left. We hold a ball just for a moment. I pivoted the right foot. And then this is white ape. Swings through branches. Okay, shift back, left, pivoting the left foot, step the right foot up and over, shift right, shift back left, elbow strikes the heart, shift back right, ring the gong, shift left, and strike a tiger. I did a little step around that's necessary with a partner. It's not necessary in your solo form. Step up to the corner, strum the lute. Okay, shift back into your left foot. The hands come together. We reviewed this, I think, last session. Look at this big pivot of my right foot. Step in and back and inspect horse's mouth. And then to transition, we're going to step back and come into dragon pose. Okay, all my weight's on my left foot. I'm just going to test that. Okay, good. Excellent. So have some more water if you'd like. And we'll do the B side. So for the B side, I would be facing the other direction, which happens to be south, but then I would be with my back to you. So we're going to do it a little bit different. We can do it any way we want. I'm going to face west in this case, and I'm going to start over here. So relax completely. Back in my resting posture. Sink into your left foot this time, and the right foot, it drops in and then slides back. I shift my weight back into my right foot, turning to the right naturally. Turning back to the left, slides the left foot all the way back, and it brings the arms up into dragon pose. We'll go into single whip, so my left fingers form this dragon's head, turning to the right until the dragon head drops in at my center line and then pulls left, pushing the right fingers forward, step around, strike a tiger right. Okay, so I'm all twisted up, and the way to untwist is to continue to twist left, pulling the left foot in and back, pulling the right hand back and down. This is pull. And then push, forward and up, and then step the left foot up, and then this is a shoulder strike. Okay, shift back into your left foot, arms come into this hoop shape, pivoting the right foot around, step the left foot in and back, draw the bucket from the well, and then this is the only time when I actually turn away from you. Sorry about this. Okay, so shift back, hands up at the height of the chest, left palm up, right palm down, pivot the right toe, step the left foot in and back, and then a downward push, and then we can come through and come into white snake darts out its tongue, and we can get back to the A side. Now we're back on the A side, but we'll stop because I'm facing away from you. So what we can do is, I wanted to show you something that you could practice that's different. So you can, anything you devise from our form to practice is okay. You could improvise, you could say, well, I know 3 movements of the form, so you could just improvise those movements around the house. You could just be doing our shoulder strikes, and then maybe you could do, our strum the lute. You could do, whatever moves you happen to know, you can improvise, or you can do it in a more methodical manner. And we could take the first 3 movements of the form and do them over and over again. What would happen is it would form a square. Some things that you can do, you could just go back and forth across the room. They form, so you could do this, you could just do this back and forth across your living room. This happens to be just the first movement of the form, right? And you can certainly do that, but this is a little more interesting. So let's see if this works. So what I'm going to do is the first 3 movements of the form, and then after I turn, I'm going to head off the other direction, and then I turn, and I'll head that direction. So you'll see, I'll explain it to you, and I think that I ought to be able to stay in frame. Okay, if I can just stay within these pylons, we should be good. So, and this will help you to practice the first 3 movements of the A side, and it is only 3, even though there's a lot happening in those first 3 moves. There's some implied movements that are not actually in the official Yang family list of these movements because they're implied, but we call them out and name them. For instance, 7 stars and well, this first movement is not named. Okay, so anyway, so relax back into your resting posture, and here we go. And I may take slightly smaller steps so that I stay in frame. So left foot comes up, you remember this. The hand comes up, I shift forward, I step through. This is White Snake, darts out its tongue. Remember, we come to 7 stars. This is implied. Half step, carry hammer. Actually, white crane is not listed in the movements either, because white crane is more of a defense, and mostly the attacks are listed. So remember, we do our shoulder strike. Okay, watch carefully. I shift left, and then let me just pull my right foot in, and I can start over again. Step up. Look at that. It works. The only problem is I'm going to end up walking away from you for a few movements, but that's okay, because sometimes that's informative as well. Some of the very thorough instructional videos will show the form from behind. Okay, remember when I come here, just start over again. Step in. Okay, great. This is working out really good. Okay, bear with me. I'll be back with you soon. So each time you do the form, or each time you do this, okay, watch this. So step in, and then I'm going to head out this way. So every repetition, you can feel something different, because I figure you've got to have this part memorized by now, right? So you can go into the feelings, and this is the benefit of memorizing the movements, because then you can let your mind wander. You can think about different elements. So you can kind of think, remember when we were doing the teacups, you were feeling all the twisting and turning and coiling, what if you thought about that? Where is all the coiling in this? It's not as linear as it seems, is it? You can kind of feel, and then you can experiment with going at different speeds, right? So I've been going pretty fast through this whole session, as if I had tons of coffee or something, but I can go much slower, right? And remember, never go so slow as you feel disconnected or slack. You always want to feel engaged and alive, even though you're going slowly. So you're not falling asleep at all, right? So go here. A lot of coiling and spiraling in this. And then again, okay, so step in, and then I'll show you how small you can go. You can do small frame movements. This is very small, very compact. Okay, so I don't want to walk away from you. You get the idea. Okay, great. And I dare say we could do that. We could flip-flop that and do it on the right side. So in other words, instead of stepping up with the left foot, left hand comes out, punch with the right. We could step up with the right foot, right hand comes up, step through and punch with the left. And that would be great fun. It gets a little complicated when we make our turns, but you can certainly try it, and it really will work your brain really well. So, so let's, and there is precedent to doing a few movements over and over again like this. It's called Dalu, the great rollback. We've done this. It's 3 movements done over and over again with a 90-degree pivot each time, and it's done with 2 people, and it's great fun. It's a little monotonous. It's slightly confusing, but there is precedent for taking a few movements out of your form and repeating them over and over again. And again, this is a form of moving meditation. If you zone out or your mind wanders, as long as you're still doing the proper movements, let your mind go wherever it needs to. And again, don't confuse this form of meditation with just sitting around and doing nothing like we've been doing so much of. So this is, otherwise we would suspend classes, right? But it's super important to understand the difference. So we end with the same Qigong every time. One, because it's so simple, but also it becomes the canvas on which we can see how we feel. So by doing the same Qigong at the end of class every time, you can compare how it feels this week as to how it felt last week. Does this have to do with how you feel, or does this have to do with what we practiced? Does it have to do with the weather, your temperament? And we played around with this. We played around with the breathing patterns on this. We played around with what the legs are doing. Basically, we did it one way and then we completely reversed it and did it the other way, showing that there's tons and tons of rules in Tai Chi, but as long as you know why you're breaking them, you can break them, right? As long as you're conscious of what you're doing, you can change things. And I guarantee you're going to find all sorts of high-level different teachers doing things completely different and thinking that their way is the only way, unfortunately. But the beauty of Tai Chi for me is that my way is not the only way. So again, feel free to pause here, pause your video, do 10 more of these or 100 more. Remember, if you're having any trouble with insomnia or anything like that, please do some of these before you go to sleep at night. It really works great. I'm going to make this my last one. Okay, so I'm going to end on this same theme of us not doing a whole lot lately. We will not confuse that with something else called Wu Wei, which is roughly translated into English. It's this big concept, a philosophy of efforting without efforting, trying without trying, and it doesn't really mean do nothing. It means that you can accomplish a lot without this insane striving, right? And we know that with a little practice, our Tai Chi has been improving and improving and improving. It always feels like we're on a plateau, but I can tell you guys are improving. You don't know you are, but you are, and that's a pretty good example of Wu Wei. But it does require some practice. So there's an old saying, Chinese saying, the sage does nothing yet accomplishes everything. And thank you so much for practicing with me. High point of my day, and I look forward to seeing you next week.